to the record. Senator Booker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. And Ms. Mascott, this doesn't directly pertain to you, but I just want to say for the record, I'm watching in the short time I've been in the United States Senate the continued deterioration of the advise and consent role of the United States Senate. I know Senator Coons very well, as one of my few friends I had in the Senate before I became a senator, who works in a bipartisan way, in a way that's a model really for the United States Senate. He made it very clear to the White House he was willing to work with them to find a candidate acceptable to them that could be a consensus and unifying candidate. But unfortunately, they are strongly objecting to your nomination. And I know, and I've heard from members of this committee on the other side of the aisle, how much they reacted when a similar situation happened, or at least what a nominee was put forward in the Biden administration that didn't ultimately go forward to a vote. Well, this mirrors my experience with the vacant Third Circuit Court seat in New Jersey, which was filled by Emile Beauvais. With your nomination, we now have 2 judicial nominees to the Third Circuit that do not have home state senator support. But more than that, their objections, I think, are principled because of your lack of ties to the circuit. On the appellate court, you will be reviewing decisions of the district courts in Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Virgin Islands. You haven't appeared in this circuit and have very few ties. There's a reason why our framers put these very important pillars into our Constitution. And what I'm seeing right now is something that I know confidently that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would not accept, would find problematic. And to do it in a district where there are senators who are very much willing to support Republican nominees that are done in a process that brings us together and doesn't yet again not only divide us, but ultimately continues to deteriorate the role that we have, I find highly objectionable. But Ms. Mascott, you are before us, and I want to jump right in. In your Senate questionnaire, you describe your selection. I'm sorry. When the president tried to fire FTC commissioners, I believe illegally so, Rebecca Slaughter and Alvaro Bedoya, I led over 40 of my colleagues in an amicus brief before the court. In our brief, we defended the statutory protections Congress gave to the FTC commissioners that prevent a president from firing an FTC commissioner without cause. These protections were upheld by the Supreme Court in a 100-year-old precedent, almost 100-year-old, the Humphreys executive decision, which I know you're familiar with. These protections exist because we need the FTC and other independent agencies to remain independent. The FTC breaks up monopolies, protects children's privacy online, it protects consumers by encouraging competition that keeps prices low at the grocery store, the pharmacy, and gas stations. But you argued that Humphrey's executive was, quote, not correctly decided. You were arguing essentially that independent agencies, that the FTC, maybe even the Federal Reserve, were never meant to be independent and shall serve at the pleasure of the president. Can you explain how an agency tasked with protecting American consumers can possibly remain independent if a president can fire its members at will for any reason?
So, Senator, thank you for the question, and I want to be careful in giving an answer. I know you referenced some of my academic writings to not stray into definitive statements that would be a problem as a judicial nominee. Structurally, with constitutional principles, my scholarship and those comments are referencing the principle that the president is vested with the executive power and so needs to be fully in charge of the executive branch, and that within our system we have checks for everyone. And so if there were a fully independent commission, who would be responsible for checking their actions if it's not the presidential supervisor? Now, certainly Congress, through its appropriations power, through the contours of the power that it gives to the office, through imposing constraints, would certainly have a role. And so I think that's a way in which the separation of powers would operate effectively.
So I'm going to have more questions for the record, but I want to just let you know clearly that I believe we have a president who has authoritarian ambitions. I believe we have a president right now who is openly violating court orders, openly violating clear principles of our Constitution. I have a president that is threatening judges that disagree with him and the independence of the judiciary. We have a president that is assuming responsibilities like spending powers clearly laid out in the Article I branch. I'm doing a lot of reading recently about the deterioration of democracies around the globe. And it is amazing how this president is doing things that speak to a very chilling and very sobering reality of a person who does not have respect for our Constitution and is doing things, to me, that could undermine our democracy, its strength, the trust in our institutions, or worse. I have a big suspicion now that he is putting forward judges that are more loyal to him than they are to constitutional principles. I believe we are in a dangerous time. And I'm going to have questions for you for the record, but I will say to you in this open hearing that your job is not to be President Trump's lawyer on the courts, but it is a sacred obligation. And when the independence of agencies, when the checks and balances of our Constitution are under attack as they are right now, it really is chilling to me that we have a judge nominee before us that cannot state unequivocally that they will protect not just the Constitution, but the important and urgent independencies of agencies and the urgency we have right now to deepen our commitment to constitutional principles. And so I look forward to getting your answers on the record, and thank you very much for the indulgence to the chairman.
Thank you.